I love that introduction. Hey, Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Isn't it cool how I come onto the screen like I didn't just talk to you behind the scenes for like 10 minutes and act like it's the first time?
Yes, it is.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to have this quick chat with me this morning. I hope that it will be a series of conversations that we can have. We're going to share this everywhere because I think you have a real significant story to tell. And the thing I like about it is that I know it's not just you. After 10 years of coaching women, consulting women in business, this is a story I hear way too often, but it's getting louder. Like it's getting louder now. So I'm so glad that you agreed to come and have this conversation with me. Before we get into the conversation, this is our first time kind of talking. I just have been LinkedIn stalking you, kind of. And so tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're passionate about, and the work that you're doing.
Most definitely. So, first, I am a servant leader. I'm a believer, a disciple of Christ, first and foremost. So, I'm a person who loves people, right? I love people, and I also um, would love to see a world eventually where love and peace is promoted. We get to experience that in its entirety. I'm most passionate about helping Black women heal and evolve so they are able to live a life where they are being well and they are satisfied in multiple areas in their lives because we do wear many hats and we do have multiple roles. And most of the times, we want to be successful, but it's not only success, you know, the outward success, but you want to feel that you are content and you are successful outside of work and outside of the things that you do.
You have way more zen than I have. Most people come in my presence and they're like, "You're so zen. You just brought me down from like 15 to 1." You definitely embody like love and peace. So, um thank you for being that this morning cuz I'm like out in the clouds this morning, beaming like I'm living on the sun. So this is good. I love the name of your company, SoundMind Wellness. How does SoundMind Wellness play into your passions, what you're passionate about, and how did you come up with the name?
Okay. So, Sound My
As I
One,
make my tea over here.
make your tea. I got my water. So SoundMind Wellness is a mental health and wellness brand. Now, it started off as just a private therapy practice, but I know I have more passions and more things that I want to do with the brand. So it is morphing and evolving into a full-on brand where your well-being, your emotional health, and your mental health is promoted. So we help women learn how to set healthy boundaries, improve their relationships, enhance their confidence, identify and address any unresolved trauma, and at the same time, increasing their emotional intelligence.
Mm.
So
Increasing emotional intelligence. That's what does that really look like? I was about to say that's important, and while it is important, what does that really mean, and what does that really look like in today's world?
learning how to, becoming aware of not
Mhm.
only how others affect you, but also how you affect others as well.
Yeah.
So paying attention
Mhm.
and being intentional of how others experience you, how you experience the world. being aware to the things that are not, treating that do not mean you well. The things, the people that do not mean you well. Learning how to be aware of your emotions. That's part of emotional intelligence. Managing your relationships, managing your emotions. So all of that is part of emotional intelligence. And the women I work with, we focus on that as well. I tell them we don't only focus on the past, because many times you hear that therapy only focus on the past. No, we focus on the past because we're living life right now. We also focus, I also focus on what's happening right now in your life. What change do you want to make? Limiting beliefs, and how can we change those? Limiting beliefs to power, empowering yourself. So
Yeah. It's interesting. So people think that therapy is about the past. That might be why we have to do so much convincing about why therapy is a dynamic thing, because they think people might be thinking the past is the past instead of no, it's actually about healing your present. And we have to go into the past to help you with that. But here's how it's showing up in your current life. So what kind of problems I want to ask you, why is this a problem? Like, why do we need emotional intelligence? But I think the better question would be, what kind of challenges, problems, issues, circumstances are women coming to you with? I think I need more assistance and guidance. So people watching can identify in the story as to, oh, that might be something that can help me. I didn't even think about that.
So many of the women that I work with are, I'm going to say all of them are successful in their lives. Doing well, and many times people see them on the outside and they're like, you don't need any help. What are you complaining about? You have everything that you want. You're making all the money that you could possibly make. You don't look like you need any help. Not knowing that that's not the only part of life that's important.
Yeah.
Those people are the go-to for everybody else. They're the one that they're helping, their family. Some of them are, the only ones who are the most successful. Some of them are. So it's like many people are coming to them for help. So they're pouring into everybody else and then putting themselves last. So what we do is we want to change that mindset where I say, I'm not going to tell you, because a lot of times you're like, well, you need to say no to people. You need to kick people to the curb. But if you're a caring person, why would we want to change that? We just want to change how you show up. And we want to change the fact that, now before you were not making yourself a priority. Now you're going to make yourself a priority. Right?
Yeah.
So, because before you can show up for everybody else, you have to show up for yourself, and you have to be well. If I'm not well, I can't help the people in my life. So I have to put me first. It's not me being selfish. Actually, it's not. It's me, making sure that
by definition of the word, it is us being selfish, and that's okay by definition of the word. But in the societal frame, it's not you being selfish. It's you taking care of yourself. So with that being said, I would like to dive into how you decided to take care of yourself But first, give us the gory details of this story. The post that really grabbed my attention and pulled me in. You started out with the hook line, "My job almost killed me." And I was like, what, girl? Let me read the rest of this. And so I kept reading, and I was like, this is such a great conversation because this story is for so many. I had a friend and one of our contributing writers, Gigi Diaz, at Feel Well magazine. And she was telling us a story during the Feel Well Summit in August about how, you know, her lifestyle almost took her out. She's driving down the expressway. She can't see anything. And she has to pull over and try to like gain her, you know, gather herself and everything. And, you know, this story is very common. So, how did your job almost kill you?
As soon as I hit post, I was like, I don't know what they're going to say, how, you know, the responses, because I wasn't expecting a huge response from it, but I was encouraged to tell my story. And when I sat down and I thought about it, I said, okay, how can I help somebody else? And that's the first thing that came to my mind, is that my job almost killed me. So what happened is, you know, I was working, you know, in a leadership position that, you know, kind of like fell in my lap in the sense of like I qualified for it, but I wasn't looking for that position because, right?
Mm-hmm.
In working that position, I ended up working 12-hour, 16-hour days, and I was working 6, sometimes 7 days a week. I started, I was nursing at the time when I started, my youngest now. And because, you know, I wanted to be successful, you know, I always had, you know, the goal of wanting to be successful. I put my all in that job, and I neglected my children, my family, myself. The sad part is that that job did not promote workplace well-being. It didn't. You know, I would ask for help and would be ignored, or be gaslit into thinking it was me, I was the problem, or that I didn't really need help. Um, so I didn't really have the support that I needed. And because of that, I did not want to fail. And shame is something that also played a role where, okay, I don't want to fail. You know, I don't, as a Black woman, you know, because it was very few in leadership positions. As a Black woman, I don't want to, you know, fail and look like I can't do it. So not having the support, and having to work so much, I ended up, you know, being sick and not knowing that I was sick. I went to a routine eye exam, and as the specialist was looking in my eye, he just stopped. Okay, like what's going on? He said, "Do you have anything else you need to do today?" At that point, now I'm freaking out. Because I'm like, what is, you know, he's not telling me anything. He's like, do you have anything? I said, well, you know, I had plans to go back to work. But, you know, I can figure out, you know, I can call my husband and tell him, we have to pick up the kids because I'm going to have to be here. And he said, I see something and I need to do further testing, but it has to be now. So what ended up happening is my optic nerves were swollen. And it was to a degree where I could have lost my eyesight and it could have led to death. I ended up, getting the diagnosis after, following up. But I ended up having to get an on-stat, MRI, full scan body MRI that day to see, if there were any other issues, in my brain, being caused by that. And, they ask me all the questions, do you have any history of this, history of that? And I'm like, no, like I follow up with my doctor's appointments. I make sure, I'm taking care of myself. And then when I started, they're like, what do you do? And I started to tell them my story. Like, because we don't see what could have caused this, sometimes it could be stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I sat there and I just started to think, oh my goodness, all these hours I've been putting in, not having the support, all this time, why am I doing this? If I'm no longer here, who's going to be here for my kids? Of course, they're going to have their dad, they're going to have my family, but I want to be here for them. How am I going to be able to realize the vision that I have, the dreams that I have? And then at the same time, while all of this is going, I'm still getting emails, I'm still getting calls, even though I told them like I'm in a situation where I'm not well. We're trying to figure out what happened. And that moment right there showed me like, you don't care about me. You don't care about my well-being. You care about your bottom line. So the person who's going to have to start caring about me is me. So that's when I made the decision where it's either me or the job. And I chose me. It was scary. It was really scary because I needed a job. I needed the income,
Yeah.
I had to choose me.
The person who's going to have to start caring about me is me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to put that up on the screen for y'all right quick, because this is something that we need to remember. The person that is going to start having to care about you is you. So a lot of times we want people, including our jobs, to place priority on ourselves, on us, but we're not placing the priority on ourselves. So it's like we hear people say, right? If we are not prioritizing ourselves, why would anybody else? And so sometimes that looks like ways of being that we might not necessarily want, like we might not want to minimize our hours or resign from our jobs or things like that, but it's just about the priority. I'm not saying you have to quit your job. I'm saying just how can you make yourself a priority? So you go to the doctor, a routine eye exam, you find out that you have swollen optic nerves, right? You said inflamed optic nerves. They have to do a full body MRI right then and there. You have to stop everything you're doing that day. I'm sure your husband had to come to your aid. Someone probably had to pick up the kids. You were forced. Yeah, I can imagine the whole scene in my head. You were forced to take care of yourself on that day and not worry about anything else. So, how do you believe this began? Like, how did this build up get to this point? What did that look like?
Stress, working too much.
What does stress look like? Because I think sometimes we hear the word and sometimes we don't know how to identify stress in our lives. Like, what was stress looking like for you?
Anxiety, it showed up as anxiety. And, as I think back on it, the signs were there, but I ignored them, There were times where I was having like a panic attack and it felt as though I had tightness in my chest. And I attributed it to, I didn't eat, because that's another thing. I was having a lot of working lunches without lunch. So, I was, skipping my meals because, there were deadlines. And if you didn't get this done, your job was on the line. And, because of that, I was having a lot of like panic attacks. But I ignored it and I attributed to that, and then I also attributed to, I'm probably having gas, and not paying attention to that. Lots of migraines, because stress looks different in everyone, but for me that's what it looks like. I was very anxious. I had a lot of migraines. It showed up as depression at times, where I just thought, I was just sad because I didn't get something done. But it showed up as depression many times during that period, and it just kept it just let up slowly, but it caught up with me.
Mm-hmm. So these moments of depression, were you kind of like not knowing what was bringing this depression? So kind of sweeping it under the rug. Was the depression clear to you what you might have been depressed about?
I knew, if this makes sense. I knew, but I didn't know, because as a therapist, I've helped several women. I've helped people. This is what I do. This is what I study on, like, the physical and the emotional attributes to, like, depression, anxiety. If you ask me, I can tell you. But then when it's happening to me, like, no, I gotta keep pushing. I gotta keep pushing. I know I'm going through this, but I'm gonna be okay, because I have people that I need to help. I have bills to pay. That's another thing that's like, that was like, over, going over my head, was like, we got bills to pay. If I'm to leave right now, at that time we were not in a position for me to leave. We need this extra income. I have private school tuition to pay. I have, preschool tuition to pay. We have to put food on the table. We have to make sure the kids are well. It's not just me. So again, I unknowingly, as I look back, I put myself last so I could make sure everyone else was being well,
Including your job.
including my job.
Yes. Now, was it like a large corporation? Was it a smaller entity? Were they too like an organization that was trying to, beat the pavement, climb up, get bigger, grow? Like, what was their dynamic without telling us all the beans?
Yeah. And that's another reason why it took so long for me to tell my story, because there are times where people need to be called out. But I also know that not everyone at that place, treated me poorly. So that wouldn't be fair to them to, like, okay, call out where. But I could share that, it was a large organization that, should know better.
That's the main part I wanted to inquire about, if it was a large organization. And the larger organizations are the ones that I'm actually interested in making sure they have workplace wellness, or wellness in the workplace, because the truth of the matter, the part that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, that I want to bring some fairness to the larger organizations or to corporate, is that they have the responsibility of making sure everyone eats, right? So they have to stay on top of what they're doing. If they crumble and crash, everyone crumbles and crashes. And then everyone is like, oh my God, I got fired, I got laid off, I got this, I got that. But what I want to encourage large organizations and corporations to do, to embody, is to embody a spirit of wellness. And the same thing that it took you to get there when you started out as just one person, and you kind of like had to program your mind, programming your employees with wellness, programming them, because it's not innate to all of us, but programming them with wellness is also programming them with a mindset, a spirit, and a soul for wealth, health, productivity and increase. And if your employees are well, then you are well. Your company is well. Your company will thrive so much more, you know?
Exactly. Because, being in management, I understood that we had, outcomes that we had to make. We had goals that we had to make. I understood that. But like you said, if your people are not well, what's going to happen to your company?
Yeah.
You know? And even if your company stays that way, but now you are growing a group of people who are not well, and that not only affects your company, but it affects the world, because it's those people have families, they have lives outside of where they work, so they're taking on that stress, to their home, back home. And if, unfortunately, some people end up succumbing to the stress and, the physical illness that stress brings on. And that ends up affecting their families and generations to come. So,
Yeah.
like workplace wellness is very important. And that's something that I'm going to continue to advocate for.
Yeah. And the bottom line, like the bottom line in business gets affected. So the more your people don't feel well, the more they're calling out from work because they don't want to be there. That I have a client that we're working with right now at Feel Well Magazine. Shout out to Island Sips Juice and Salads. And one of the stories, the taglines, the messages that we're promoting is you can beat your midday slump by getting nutritious food from them for breakfast and lunch. That is also workplace wellness, because when you have the office party or whatever, or y'all are going out to lunch, when people come back after lunch, sometimes they don't come back because they done got the itis, they tired, migraines come after those huge meals you just ate. And it's just not a well place to be. Now they're calling out work, or they're not coming back, or they feel tired and slumpy, or they don't want to do work, so they're talking with the other employees in the office. They're not motivated, they're not inspired, they're not productive, and they're missing out on key things because all of that stuff is feeding the brain, and it can feed the brain either health or it can feed the brain sickness. Which one do you want working at your computer, at your desk, or out in the field for you? I think I want the energetic, charged up, nutritious mind, or meditative mind, or therapeutic mind. I think I would rather choose those, So I'm taking that moment to bring that to the attention of the large corporations and organizations. So how did you escape from this? Did you just stop everything? Did you come up with a plan? What happened?
Like I said, I had bills to pay. So I had to come up with a plan. Now, because my husband was there and he witnessed all of this happening, and I know it took a toll on him. So we did come up with a plan where we had to create, like, the transition for me to start working for, myself, because we realized that stress does not do well for me. Like, I don't do well under stress. No one does well under stress. But we realized that the more stressed I was, the more sick I was getting. And he said, I do not want to lose you. So we have to figure this out. And so we had like a 2-year plan where we, I was doing private practice, like here and there, 1 or 2 clients. But it was, not even part-time. It's just something that I enjoy doing therapy, but we looked into going into it full time. And I am so grateful for a colleague turned friend of mine who told me, come to my practice and I'll teach you everything that I know.
What?
She did that. And I'm forever grateful for her.
That's a blessing as a business owner, because sometimes people want to cuff like the
Yes,
process.
yes. And she did that for me. So because I had that support and I had, his support, I was able to, plan, my exit. And when it was time for me to leave, it was bittersweet because at that time I also left. I left and I took a position for almost half of what I was getting paid. But I at that point I was like, I don't care. As long as we can pay the bills, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. I just want to be well. So, I took that and I was able to, my last position was one of the best positions that I could have had because it allowed me to focus on myself. I felt supported. They even supported me when it was time for me to leave because, I told them what I was doing, that I was going into full-time private practice, and they supported me throughout that process. So that's how I did it. And I know when I speak, and that's another reason why I take my time when I speak, because you have to do things with humility and awareness. And I'm aware that my story, the way I was able to do it, is from a place of privilege. Not everyone could do that. And I have to be aware of that. So I'm not going to tell you leave your job, but I'm going to tell you outside of your job, take care of yourself.
Yeah. It's so good because that's how I feel. I get to do what I do, try new things from a place and a space of privilege. And it that word privilege doesn't mean that I'm a millionaire or a billionaire. It just means a space of privilege as far as like my time, my support, who I have behind me, in front of me, on the side of me, above me, below me, backing me, fronting me. All of that is my privilege. And so I don't take it lightly, and I'm so honored. But what I always or have become mindful of is just what you said, like before in your journey, having that. Sometimes I might wake up with the anxiety of, oh my God, I have all these people supporting me and being behind me. I got to make this work. I got to make that work. And then I slow myself down and I say, stop, wait. You're the only one putting this pressure on yourself right now. So relax, because it goes all the way back full circle. If you don't feel well, what's the point? So that's what slows me down every time. If I don't feel well, what is the point? Now, I'm curious, Sara, do you have any, tips for us? We're so grateful and thankful that you're here to share your story with us. Because like I said, there's so many people out here with this same story. And because you serve Black women in particular, that's who you target. I know that this story is hitting home for many of us. And so I'm curious, how does nutrition, movement, any of your practices pour into helping you stay grounded and having a sound mind?
So what I eat is very important.
Okay.
So do make it a priority on maintaining a relationship with my primary physician and all the other specialists in my life, where I make sure I go to my, well women checkups on a consistent basis. If I feel anything, I make sure that I contact, my primary physician to let them know this is what's going on with me. I want to check it, and it took me a while to finally have someone that I feel safe with,
Mm.
because prior to that, I was with someone where I do, suffer from high blood pressure, and I was with someone who, although they were a person of color, we were not, we didn't have the same ethnic backgrounds. So unfortunately, and this is one person, this is not for an entire group, this is one person. Unfortunately, that experience with that person was not good for my health. And it made things even worse because I was being ignored. The questions that I had, and a lot of like microaggressions were being spoken. Asking me questions about, oh, do you eat a lot of salt? Do you put Maggie in your food? And I'm like, I've told you several times that I do not. I want to live. I do
Mm.
not. You keep bringing this up. You
Mm-hmm.
know, how do you see me? Like, do you see me as a person? You see the prejudice and all all the false narratives that have been created, about people who look like me. Is that what you see?
Mm-hmm.
I had to make the decision to go to someone who saw me as me, and was willing to help me get better. So I'm in a better space. So it's important to be with someone that you're comfortable with. Whatever doctor you go to, that your well-being is important to them. So
Mm-hmm.
that has helped a lot. And I listen. I told him, I whatever you tell me I gotta do so I could, feel better, I'm going to do it. So I, make sure I think I got allergy tested, and I got the food. I think I forgot the name of it, but like to see what foods that are not good for you or that you are
Good.
allergic to.
Food
Yeah,
test. Okay.
and it was a long list, a lot of stuff that I like to eat. But then when I started to eliminate them out of my diet, I realized I was feeling better. So that's what I focus on, making sure, because the foods that you eat actually sometimes affect your mood. So um,
She
it's
said it. I ain't have to say it for y'all today. She said it for me.
they do.
Yeah. And sometimes the time of day, I was just telling my health coach that I was like, oh man, I think I'm allergic to pineapple.
Mm-hmm.
And because I noticed it was doing something to my stomach. So then I ate it again another day. And I've never been allergic to pineapple, but I ate it again another day. But I ate it in the morning and I only ate a little bit. And I realized, oh, I'm not having any pain. So that's another conversation we're going to have another day.
Mm-hmm.
At Feel Well, but how certain foods may affect you certain times of the day or when they're combined with other things. There's just so much to explore over
Yeah.
here at Feel Well magazine. So, if you could, uh, let's see. If you could feed the men and women listening one piece of verbal nourishment, I like that. A verbal nourishment to help them find prosperity and embody or develop a sound mind, or just move in the direction of prosperity and having a sound mind. What would that be?
I would say give yourself permission to do what's best for you.
Hmm.
Okay? The state of your well-being and your mental health is important. Make it a priority.
This is so good. You're so calm and so patient and so like, poised and wise. This is lovely. I wish that we could go on with this longer, but I have a feeling that this won't be the last time you and I are speaking, not just with each other, but with everyone else that's watching. Um, how does one identify that they might need some guidance developing a sound mind?
Okay. So with that, I would say if that person, if you are a person who is looking to evolve into the best version of yourself, you're wanting to learn how to manage everyday stress, you are wanting to learn how to decrease your anxiety, you need mental health support, you are wanting to learn how to use your voice, I would say, let's see if we are a good fit, because that's another thing where I make sure that I do a consultation with everyone that is looking to work with me, because I may not be the best person to work with you, and that's okay. It has to be the right fit for you and the right fit for me, because it's a collaborative therapeutic relationship.
Yeah, a right fit for you and a right fit for me because we all not the right fit for each other.
Because I want to help everyone, but I cannot. And I have to understand that. Certain skills I don't have. You know, I'm trained. I specialize in trauma and anxiety, and I focus only on that. And that's I do all my trainings on that, so I can always keep up my skills. And if
Mm,
someone comes to me and they tell me what's happening with them, and it sounds like something that I know I cannot help them with, I'm not gonna keep them because I'm gonna end up hurting them more. So I've learned. I'm also evolving and I'm growing. I wasn't always like this. So I'm learning, as time comes, where I need to have a list of people that I'm connected with that I can refer others to.
yes, that's so good. Now that's the best piece of business advice that she just gave us, y'all. Sarah, I just want to thank you so much for your time this morning. It has been very pleasant and delightful. And I hope that we will do this again soon. I want everyone to look out for Feel Well magazine, the first issue printing very soon. I'm also going to put this interview up on feelwellmagazine.com. So, you guys, if you're looking for it, you can go check it out there. Sarah, you can share it with your community. And I'm looking forward to spreading this message, this common message that we have about workplace wellness, personal well being, and just as you said, being the person who's going to start caring about you first so that everyone else will then feed off of that energy. With that being said, I'm off to pick up little ones. Have a great day.
Thank you. This was amazing.